morning, everybody. Rick Gorman here, along with my fellow co-host Scott Chandler, and we are debuting the Off the Clock podcast. This is a podcast that has been years in the making. Both of us are retired now. Scott's been retired a little bit longer than me. And we've kind of put this idea together to throw a podcast out to talk about a lot of things, not just aging, but retirement, but just life in general. So first of all, welcome to our podcast, Scott Chandler.
Yeah, thank you very much. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to say anything then. That was kind of a long intro, but that's okay.
And that'll be the way every week, usually. Scott, why don't you, because not many people do know you, you're a little man under the radar a little bit, a little nervous coming in here today to do your first podcast, but why don't you let our listeners know a little bit about who you are and why you're here?
Well, I'm not a seasoned veteran like yourself when it comes to podcasts, that's for sure. So my name is Scott Chandler, and I'm here because I've known Rick Gorman for maybe over 20 years. It was 20 years ago. You almost kicked me off the basketball court in North Andover Youth Center. So,
that's true.
So I retired maybe a year and a half ago, and my transition is a little different than Rick's. And I think the point of this podcast is just to kind of talk about our different experiences, both good and bad, when it comes to the retirement piece of it. And we'll see how it goes, you know, and we have different subjects that we'll talk about, that we'll allude to, and hopefully we'll delve into things like people feel uncomfortable talking about sometimes, friendships, mortality, immortality, things like that. So,
how about telling people like what you did your whole life, you know, your family?
Yeah,
let people know who you are.
I really don't think they care what I did that much. That's the truth, so. But reality is I worked in the high-tech industry for maybe 30 years. Talk about something, you can lose the listeners quickly if you mention I was a data warehouse person, because I'm sure nobody really cares about that. But that's what I did. And, you know, middle management type thing. And I was not married to my job, unlike my co-host who was married to his job and was very intense. Not that I wasn't intense, but it wasn't something that defined me, never was. And so that we're coming at it from different perspectives that way as well, in terms of, you know, kind of our journeys.
And you're married to the first girl you ever met, Nancy. You got a couple of kids, grandkids. Let's let the listeners know a little more about you.
Yeah, well, don't tell her, but I did have a girlfriend or two in high school. So I think I did meet a girl or two before her, but of course not serious. No, so Nancy, yep, I've been married to her for a long time. And I have 2 kids. I have 3 grandkids. And again, that's where Rick and I differ a little bit, because he does not have grandkids. So that's obviously a big piece of an older man's life, an elderly man's life. So that's kind of my background.
All right. And I'm Rick Gorman, just recently retired after 38 years as the Youth Services Director for the town of North Andover, a job that obviously I loved and miss. I've only been out 3 months. It is an adjustment, to say the least. I do look at Scott as a little bit of a mentor in terms of retirement life, because I'm just stepping in the waters of that now, and he does have a year and a half on me on that. So really looking forward to this podcast and delving into a lot of different things. Unlike Scott, I'm divorced. I have 2 grown children, Michael and Lindsay, off doing some good things themselves. I don't have grandchildren yet. Thanks for reminding everybody of that. I'm hoping at some point in time that I will have grandkids. But as a divorced person in the 60s, navigating that whole thing, this is where Scott and I will come from different angles on things. But obviously, we're excited about doing this podcast and sharing a little bit of our knowledge that we have. We're going to definitely add some humor for people that know both of us. There'll be a lot of busting chops a little bit back and forth. We are definitely looking into bringing in a number of different guests. And these guests could be anything from, we have a good friend, the famous, world-renowned cardiologist, Dave Samanek. We're going to bring him in. We've got a good friend, Waterboy, who's a musician, and we'll talk a little bit about, you know, aging and life and what this next chapter is. So, one of our things is this is the next chapter. So, Scott, in a year and a half, what's this next chapter for you been like? Fill us in.
Yeah, first of all, I'm going to say basically your retirement has gone smoother than you thought it was going to. Would you say that's correct?
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
point,
you saw me probably, it was a snowstorm. I was raking ice off your roof because you're just not really good at that. And in talking to you and your wife, I found myself getting emotional that I was leaving my job where a year earlier you were like doing jumping jacks about getting out. So yeah, it's gone smoother than I absolutely thought it was going to go.
Yeah, my wife and I had you on the couch, and you were lying down, and we had to bring out the Kleenex. So that was a tough night.
That's not totally wrong, although I wasn't lying on the couch. But I mean, it has gone smoother. But for you, the navigation and a number of our friends are heading towards retirement now. And we've been kind of watching you. We just always wondered if you were just going to do fantasy sports updates every day, go to movies. What has been for you some of the biggest challenges maybe in this new chapter?
I think getting roto right every day is probably one of the biggest challenges, and also jumble. So jumble can be difficult sometimes. So that's no, but really the transition was pretty smooth for me because, again, I really didn't identify with my job, although the job was intense and there was a decent amount of pressure. But once I was done, it was a big relief. And my wife and I, for the first month of my retirement, traveled down to Florida, which was a great escape. It probably didn't realistically portray what retirement was going to be or look like, but it was a great month in Florida. It was and it was hard not to look at that as a month-long vacation versus an entryway into retirement. But it's been smooth, So, and again, we'll get into these aspects of it. But do I get bored at times? Not really, which is surprising. Again, I'm a big kind of sports guy. I'm a fantasy sports guy. I like to play fantasy basketball, football, baseball. So, and again, I know that's boring to some people, but that takes a good part of my day. I like to work out. So it really hasn't been a hard transition at all, but it's different. It's definitely, some days I get confused on what day of the week it is. And I said, oh boy, is Wheel of Fortune on tonight or is Wheel of Fortune not on tonight? So if it isn't, it must be a weekend. So that's, But at times it's just one day kind of does look like the other, but I'm okay with that. And again, we'll get into those aspects of it, but it's been a smooth transition, nothing to complain about. So likewise, how would you define your transition, even though you're only 3 months in?
Yeah, it's been a big adjustment, as we just mentioned earlier. I think I'm handling it better than I thought I was going to because, I absolutely loved my job, loved going there every single day. Most people have these scary Sunday scaries about going to work on Monday. I never did. So for me, the biggest thing was, Jesus, I had such a profound job in terms of going 90 miles an hour, 7 days a week. So for me, the slower pace has been really hard to adjust. The good thing, I get to go to my amazing Planet Fitness, which is in my building. I go there 7 days a week, and I'm there for 2 hours, stuff that I couldn't do, obviously, when I was working. Doing a lot of different, unlike you, I'm still trying to stay in the work field. I've been doing some consultant work, doing some basketball training, which I do. And I do find myself getting a little bored, but it's been great to kind of get caught up on things that I just never really had enough time to do. Like I've been really passionate about, obviously being in the best shape, health stuff, really investing a lot of time into that. And it'll be interesting to see. I will definitely have to do some kind of work. Not only because I want to, but, financially I want to live a certain way that obviously I'm used to living, and that will help with that. So, yeah, the adjustment has been interesting. I probably have asked you a million questions, and now I'm starting to get people asking me questions. We have a fellow friend that will be retiring this summer, so it'll be the next person on that. So, yeah, I'm handling it pretty good. It's been an adjustment, but I think I'm going to like this next chapter. I don't know what it looks like, but I think I'm going to like it.
Yeah, from an outsider looking in, it looks like you're calmer. I mean, I think My guess is your blood pressure's down a little bit, if I had to guess.
Well, thanks for bringing that up,
Yeah,
Scott.
you're welcome.
The
Yeah.
blood pressure was I'm a type 2 diabetic, so blood pressure is huge. And as I was working, blood pressure was always something I was extremely concerned about. Concerned my primary care as well as my cardiologist, obviously concerned with that. But blowing for me is how much my blood pressure has gone down since I've been retired. I check it every day, and today I'm like 117 over 69. I mean, these are numbers that I've never had before.
That's because you knew you were going to be with me today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure that would have raised the blood pressure.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think and I asked Dr. Dave, like, what's all that about? And he basically said in his practice, the amount of people that retire and basically their blood pressure goes down. Some people are even able to get off some medication or whatever. So calm is definitely something that I agree with you. I'm much calmer. Things don't seem to frazzle me as much. I do miss the running around. I do miss being in the thick of everything. But overall, yeah, calm's a good possibility.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's a positive.
Yeah. So as we roll this out, a lot of people, we've been talking, well, I've been talking about this podcast. You're very nervous about, whether anybody will listen. And
No, wait a second. That's absolutely not true. I'm not nervous that people will or won't listen. I'm just making sure we don't sound, we sound sane. We sound like reasonable people that, I just don't want to put something out there that doesn't make sense to people.
yeah, and our listeners will tell us that. I mean, I think the biggest, our group of basketball players, we don't play anymore, but we did for many decades.
We never played well. Some
Yeah.
people did.
We played very slow, but the Wildcats, as we were called, were very concerned about you being on this podcast because of your voice. So I'm glad that those voice classes have gone well leading up to the podcast. But I actually think, our goal is to be authentic, just to kind of really tell it like it is, tell our feelings on that. We don't pretend to be experts on any specific subject matter. We're just trying to live life and trying to live our best life at this point in time. So, I think that I'm hoping people are going to listen to this podcast. I think, when we have certain guests on, I think that's going to be really interesting people. I think certain topics that we're going to talk about are going to really interest some people. And we're going to branch off into some other things too. We're going to debut it today, but Scott is an expert on breweries, so we're going to both give a little review of a brewery that we've both been to and today, and then we'll delve into different things. Those people that think that we're going to just talk sports all the time, we won't, but we will talk a little bit about the sport. So how about your Celtics, by the way? Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah, well, let's not talk about them. What were they, 12 for 49 from three?
Yeah.
Or 13 from 49? So, but anyhow, let's go back to your statement about the podcast, because I think a relevant point that can kind of tell people the difference between your personality and my personality is the fact that you told and promoted this podcast before we did anything, before we saw how it went, and said it was going to be great and this is going to be awesome. You have to listen to it. And I think I told one friend who told me not to do it because he said, that's not going to be a good look for you. So I didn't listen to him. Obviously, I'm here. But I think that, and maybe it's a vulnerability, and you think as you get older, you would say, who cares? Doesn't matter. But again, you have some pride in yourself, so you don't want to, and I've never done this before, so you want to make sure it sounds okay. Now, I know you've given me a hard time about not telling anybody, but we'll see how this goes, and if we give it at least a C or a C plus, maybe I'll tell 2 or 3 relatives, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we did talk about, because you're so busy with your fantasy sports that I had to do a lot of the legwork on this, and just to let people know, this is kind of going to be our first topic tonight, is just a little bit about our differences on even talking about this podcast and taking this leap forward. And the reality was, as you just eloquently said, and good to see that your friend B basically told you not to do it. But Reality being is I was really kind of a little set off that like, hey, you're not helping me marketing this. So in the podcast world, like in a lot of things, this is never going to be listened to people unless we actually really push it and ask people to listen to it. And again, I think having people listen it to the first time is not going to be the problem. Having them come back the second time is the one thing that we're going to have to look at that. But, I did a lot through my networking, whether it's on social media, LinkedIn, or whatever, and I was blown away with how many people were really pumped that we were doing this. And these were some people, males and females, that we've known in the past. Obviously, guys that we see on a regular basis, even our own family. But I think besides your wife, you really didn't talk much about that. And you talked a little bit, but like, am I going to be selling this podcast? Or are you gonna be selling this too?
I mean, it's probably going to be more you. I mean, let's be honest. But no, honestly, I wanted, like I said before, and I don't want to be repetitive, but I wanted to get a first run of it. Let's see how it sounds. Let's see what we're talking about. Let's see if the topics make sense. And you're more, it's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. And I'm sitting there going, I'm not sure. Let's see how it plays out. Let's be patient, and then we'll promote it if we think it's okay, So that was more my thought process. Where you're more, I wouldn't say optimistic is the right word, but you tend to be more aggressive about things. That's just your nature. Where I'm more cautious. I'm not cautious in every part of my life, but I'm cautious in making myself vulnerable and putting myself out there. So it's a little bit like, okay, is this going to be all right? Is this going to be okay? That type of stuff. Definitely more self-doubt when it comes to this stuff. So that's okay.
Yeah, and I think this is why I think we're going to work pretty good. Now, at the end of the day, nobody might ever listen to this. And when Brian from the studio here tells me that we have there's someone that listens to it every day, and it's actually me listening to it again, it could be that. I do believe that it's not just our personalities. It's not just, I think, how we can work off each other. But it's more so like, what we want to talk about. And we spent a lot of time of where we go with this. And, straight up, we're not going to talk politics. Politics is something that's just too polarizing. It's too bad it's that case because in the past, you and I have had some really good conversations around politics. But we're going to stay away from politics. But can you tell our listeners a little bit of some of the subject areas that you think we are going to talk about?
Yeah, so I think I think one thing we want to delve into is probably friendships. As you get older, how do friendships define themselves? How important are they? Do you think they're important as they used to be? Do you think they're less important? Do you think it's more important to have a large group of friends or a smaller group of friends you can connect with? Do you think there are a lot of lonely people who are in our situation who retire and watch a lot of TV and don't have social outlets? I mean, I think we want to get into that a little bit. And again, not always in a, serious is the wrong word, but not, I think we want to be cautious how we go down that route. Mm-hmm. But I think we do want to talk about it and kind of delve on that subject.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be one of our topics. And we're both reading a book. I just read it and passed it on to Scott, and we're going to keep passing it on to our crew that is heading towards retirement. And it's a book basically written by Andrew McCarthy. And if you know who Andrew McCarthy is, he's one of our idols in the rom-com world. But by the way, Scott and I, big romantic comedy guys. And Andrew wrote a book, and it's a really good book about friendships, loneliness to a certain degree, as he takes this tour around the United States to reconnect with some of his friends and then just have conversations with men around, life and everything else. So I can definitely see us delving into that. I've been spending a lot of time talking about a subject that I think is taboo to a lot of men, and that's male loneliness. And we had a great conversation Friday night, and I agree. I mean, I don't think you're a guy that's lonely. I think you have, and you'll talk more about this when we get into this subject matter in a future podcast. But, you're a guy that I think's pretty content. But there are a lot of guys out there that are quite lonely. It's considered an epidemic in the United States right now about, males and loneliness. So those are things we'll talk about.
But more importantly, what's your favorite rom-com?
Geez. Serendipity's definitely up there.
That's mine.
Yeah, I
The
mean,
proposal is really
not bad,
really
not
well done,
bad.
yeah.
I mean, we ranked them one night in a bar. We actually ranked them, and a few of the Wildcats that were with us thought that we were crazy because they're probably more into action films or whatever. But definitely, I see we got to talk rom-coms on one of
Well,
these topics.
Beautiful Girls.
Beautiful Girls, classic.
That's
classic.
probably not a rom com, but
In a way, it is.
yeah, it comes
In a
close to
way.
that genre. Yeah.
Phenomenal cast too, by
Yeah,
the way.
yeah.
So.
Great movie.
We're going to talk a little bit about, this. We keep calling it the next chapter. I use a word sometimes that when we get to this age, you have more yesterdays than tomorrows. And, when I'm dealing with kids, they have a lot more tomorrows than yesterdays. And, with us, I think, our tomorrows, what do they look like? Does it look like travel? Does it look like reinventing yourself and doing something? What's your purpose? What's your passion? And that's something that we've talked a lot about with that too. So, we're hoping to, bring in guests along with us, and we're going to need your help on that. So, love you to reach out to either one of us. Can reach me by email at fullctd@aol.com. Yes, I have an AOL state, and that goes with the aging thing also. So if people want to kind of throw out some ideas of things to talk about or who some of the speakers would like to have as guests, we can definitely do that. But I see, this just being something that evolves podcast to podcast. Is there any other topics that you right away think we got to delve into there, Scott?
No, I think just about our adjustment to retirement, and maybe talk about some adages like who was it, Sophocles, who said, "Nobody loves life like an old man." Now that can resonate with some people, or it might not resonate with some people. But you could just throw out some adage like that and talk about that for a while. Kick that back and forth. And I know when my dad was on his last legs, he did not feel that way. But I understand as you get older and you get more physically vulnerable and maybe more mentally vulnerable, you appreciate each day maybe more. So I think that's probably it depends on perspective. So I think we can talk about people's perspective and how they feel about that,
Yeah.
things like that. So
Yeah, I mean, I think that, geez, that's great.
Thank you.
Something that you're doing. So I'm doing a lot of, which I will probably always do as I walk the rest of my days, is doing a lot of mentoring. As you said, as a older person, the amount of young people as well as people close to my age that come and ask for advice or want to pick my brain on stuff. So I'm doing a lot of mentoring and still loving doing that. But you're doing something pretty cool. You're a hospice worker. Can you speak to that a few minutes?
I wouldn't say a worker. I just volunteer once a week. I visit somebody who's on hospice, and again, it's fairly rewarding because the person that I'm with has a great sense of humor. We get along really well. I can't divulge too much information here,
Sure.
but he enjoys his cigars, and we sit around and he smokes his cigar. We talk, we laugh, we watch. What did we watch last time? Judge Judy, and he was telling me things he thought about her in the program, and I can't repeat those, but it was pretty funny. So and one other time I went there, he had on an old Western. So, and we watched an old Western together. So just a lot of fun. And that's a good way to connect. And, it's just, it is what it is, but it is a way of giving back a little bit, hopefully, hopefully I'm doing some good there. And that's kind of what it's all about, right, at this point.
Yeah. And both of us are spending a lot of time at the gym, something that you've always done anyways. You're over at the famous Y in Andover, North Andover, and I'm at the new Planet Fitness. How important do you think staying physically up is really important as we go into this next chapter?
Yeah, that's a crazy question for me because I've always been a workout fanatic, and I probably go too much the other way where I overwork at this point. I underwork in terms of weightlifting. I hate weightlifting, so you make fun of me. I go on one of the machines and I do
5 reps.
5 reps of 3. So 3 sets of 5. So that would equal 15 reps. So don't say 5 reps. That equals 15 reps. and I have a good 60 pounds on there for bench or whatever it is. So yeah, if somebody comes in here and wants to fight to the ultimate death, I'm not going to win that fight, but I will be able to run away as long as they're not real
You
fast.
will be able to run away.
Yeah. So that's the good news.
Yeah, and I think you have something you've always done, and I have too, but it's just, for me, it's just at a new level right now in terms of how much I'm working out, and your weight training actually cracks me up. But, one thing that I wish I had at the Planet Fitness that you have at the Y is you got the sauna, and you're in the sauna every day. What's all that like?
Yeah, we can do a whole episode on the sauna. And again, some people may listen to this that actually go in there, so I'm not going to say too much. And this is G rated, but yeah, it's an interesting place because unlike when I go to sauna, like there are a ton of Ys obviously around the country, and I go to some in Pennsylvania, and they have it's co-ed, so a lot of things happen differently in a co-ed sauna than they do in a gender-specific sauna. So.
Right.
You see some interesting things. People stretching, people pretty proud of themselves. So
Absolutely.
It is what it is. Yeah.
Now, one thing that we are definitely going to talk about, and I'm really looking forward to a topic on this, is that we do come from two different schools that in terms of partnerships. So you and Nancy have been together forever and really want our listeners to hear what it's like to be in a partnership for as long as you have, and it's a great partnership. And then myself, was in a partnership and then got divorced, and then navigating what that all looked like after divorce. I mean, I think that's going to be a topic that I think a lot of our listeners will like to hear both of our perspectives on that as we kind of navigate that whole thing. A couple of things we are going to talk about a little bit is we're going to give a little shout out every podcast, and Scott's the one that actually got me involved with breweries, well, a number of years ago. So why does breweries interest you? Why is that something that you love to check out? New breweries, new craft beers.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a connection, one with my son-in-law, who's big into craft beer. My son wasn't big into craft beer. He's backed off a little bit. But we have a couple of friends who are into craft beer significantly. So it's a good topic to talk about. It's a good way to connect. And going to a brewery can sometimes just be like an escape. I mean, sometimes it's just a place in the middle of winter to grab a beer, and there's a fireplace, and you're kicking back with some IPA you've never had before. To me, it's just a cool environment, right? So, and again, I know it's not for everybody, but it's just something I've always enjoyed, and it is a way to connect me with some of my friends.
Yeah, and we've seen breweries grow from its inception, right? So, one of the things I'm really excited about, you're more of the craft beer guy, but like when I go to a brewery, I'd like to also get some decent food besides a warmed up pretzel or something, and seeing the growth in breweries around food and music and everything else. It's a place that we've gone to a number. You're going to talk about one that you and I have been to a few times, but it is a chance to kind of kick back, and for us, we actually could hit a brewery on a Wednesday as opposed to just going on a Friday and Saturday. So why don't we delve into our first brewery review? We'll let you go first.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a good point, though. Being able to go to a brewery when you're not tied to work is awesome. I mean, I meet some of my friends on a Wednesday afternoon, a Thursday right after work. Some of them are still working, but you're not tied to the weekend. You're not, because the weekend, some of the breweries, and again, this might bore some people, but there are some breweries where little kids, and I have nothing against going to breweries with little kids. I think that's fine. It's a good escape, but if a place, I'd rather not do that sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't bother me, but sometimes I just want the escape and quietness, a little bit of quietness. You can do that now, which is kind of cool. So the one I was going to quickly talk about is True North up in Ipswich. And again, you wouldn't think that place is, you wouldn't think I would highlight that, right? Because basically you sit there and you look out at a parking lot. But it's not a great scenery. But the brewery itself, the beer is way underrated. It's around here we have Treehouse, we have Trillium. I mean, those are the two of the high bar ones. But this place, in my opinion, the beer is the draft beer is right in line with some of those top beers. So, just a place I really like. They have an IPA that they make for a couple of restaurants around here called Share Hoppiness, which is really good, and they have the Northern Haze, which everybody knows and loves. So, anyhow, that's a spot I really like. So.
Yeah, and
Go ahead.
a couple of times we've been there. We were there one day when it was raining. We were outside, but there was another time we were there. It was a beautiful day, and you're right. You look out into a parking lot, but they did have a musician, which added to the whole thing with that.
Yeah.
My delve into this is Jill and I were staying up at Sugar Hill Inn in Franconia a few weeks back.
Do you want to introduce Jill?
Jill is my significant other right now, and she's great. And yeah.
Wow, look at that smile.
We'll talk about Jill and when we talk about Nancy.
If you could see him smile right now, that's a killer.
Well, we were up there. Thanks for interrupting my brewery review. But went to a place that I had always known about because I've spent a lot of time up in that area. It's called the Iron Furnace in Franconia. Very cool. It's at the bottom of pretty much Sugar Hill. You get good views of Cannon Mountain and everything else. So the view is a lot better than yours in terms of a parking lot. Food was excellent. They had a lot of different food. We went there twice while we were up there. They basically, you'd love it because they focus on a lot of more hoppy type beers, which is your interest. But I had a couple of things. The April Ride is a nice lager, and they also had a Post Pedal, which was a nice pale ale. I did, as you know, I like a blueberry beer, so I actually ventured into one, but didn't read the fine print. It was more of a sour, which I'm not huge on sour. So overall, a great place. If you're up in New Hampshire, swing by. I just loved the low-key atmosphere, had the music there. And we were up there. It was actually warm. They had the doors open and people were outside. So what we'll do is we'll give a little bit of review every month or so. So Scott has been to Millions, so we will never repeat in this area. Another area that we're definitely going to get to talk about is music, something that's extremely important to both of us in our lives. The amount of times that we've sat in the dark over at the Chandler estate, you yelling at Alexa to play different music, but kind of just talking about life and listening to music. So we'll talk about that a little bit. We'll go back and forth because Scott thinks music pretty much stopped in 1979, 1980.
Yeah, we actually had a great discussion about this. I think last Friday night, right?
Yeah.
Where my wife was there and. You said I put myself in a box, and again, we'll address this at some point, maybe when WB's here, the musician. But I put myself in a box a little bit, which I do, admittedly. But I like what I like. It calms me. I like to listen to the music, and I get branching out. I maybe miss some music with my grandkids the most because I don't understand what they like. I really don't know what they like, and when I'm with them, I try to listen to some stuff. Some of it resonates, some of it doesn't. But when I come home, I want to reflect. I want to think. I want to think about retirement. I want to think about doing a podcast with Rick. I put on some somber music, and I listen to Neil Young. So.
Yeah, and I come from a different thing. I mean, first of all, the era of music that he loves, I absolutely love that music. But I also believe that there's great music the last 40 years that he hasn't had a chance to really appreciate. Very excited about Noah Kahan's album that came out last week, and I asked Scott who Noah Kahan was.
Noah who?
That's exactly what he said. So we'll get into that. Obviously, to give you an idea of where his music really is, though, is I've only been to 4 concerts in my life with Scott, and each one of them has been Neil Young. Are we going again this year?
I don't know if he's touring, but if he is, we're going.
We're going. Nothing like a Neil Young concert with Scott Chandler. So, yeah. So those are some of the topics we're definitely going to get into, but I want to hear from our
Would you go see Adele?
I would.
Okay.
I would.
All right.
I mean, I don't think...
Where do you draw the line? Like, who would you see? I don't even know.
Oh, it's funny because...
Like Taylor Swift. You would go see Taylor Swift?
Like if
just
my
for the experience,
daughter
right?
or, I mean, I don't think that would be the top of my level. I'm not a Swiftie by any chance, but...
Okay.
One of the things I want to talk about is that there's all types of music. I like all genres of music. It's interesting when we bring Waterboy in. I'm not a rockabilly fan, and that's kind of he likes the bluegrass, a little bit of the rockabilly. That's music that I probably wouldn't love. But we went to this amazing thing last spring. Remember Porch Fest over in Swampscott?
It was excellent.
Excellent, all types of genre music. John, we call him WB, but John was playing. He's a very talented bassist. And we got to see all different types of music, which is really cool. So I don't know if I really draw the line. I think with you draw it hard.
Yeah, I don't deny. And again, we'll get into the subject more when we delve into it. But I don't deny that. That's true.
Yeah. So again, if you guys want to, give us some ideas for some topics or some guests, would love to hear from you on that. As we wrap up this inaugural podcast, what else you want to finish with there, Scotty?
I really don't have much. I think we're good for round one. We'll see how it goes. We'll see if we get any feedback, and we'll take it from there.
Well, will we get any feedback if you don't even tell people you were on a podcast?
Well, we can give ourselves feedback. We can say, is this good or bad?
Yeah.
So by definition, that's feedback.
Obviously, we'll probably be our harshest critics on it, but tell us, for the people that do listen to this, give us your feedback of what you liked, what you didn't like. Again, we're going to try to do this every 3 weeks. We got some pretty cool things we're going to be adding to it. We got some really good graphics around the off-the-clock images that we want to do, and we will be adding music to this. Our guy Brian here at the studio has told us legally what we can do with music. I will let you know, to no surprise, Scott wants to make sure Neil Young's Old Man is probably the first intro to our podcast, but we'll add some music to it and some other things we'd like to.
Where will Noah Khan come in?
I think Noah will come in. I mean, he's hot right now. I mean,
Okay.
I can't even get a ticket for one of the 4 shows at Fenway Park, which you didn't even know who he was, so you wouldn't know that he sold out Fenway Park for 4 straight days. But we'll delve into all of that. So I think what I'm just asking people to do, what we're just asking people to do, is give us a chance, give us a listen a little bit. Scott is very concerned about time frames on podcasts, so we're hovering around 37 minutes right now. So
That's longer than we anticipated for round one.
You did. You thought we should go for like 10 minutes, but
I said 15.
We'll probably
to
be
fair.
in the 45-minute range is probably where we'll do. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. I'm Rick Gorman. He's Scott Chandler, and we are Off the Clock. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.